our guests, Bob in Tyler, Texas, Republican line. Go ahead.
Hey, great. Thank you so much. I'll try to be calm. I had an answer to her question about storming the Capitol. I had a question about her book, and then also a comment about SCOTUS. The answer to the storming of the Capitol was who was to benefit in that situation. There was a worldwide audience with evidence to be presented, and they got totally shut down for like 8 hours. The question about her book is how to read the Constitution and why. And I was wondering if the first 3 sentences of our first law have to be considered before we consider anything in the Constitution. That's the laws of nature, nature's God, equality at creation with unalienable rights, and consent of the governed. Those first 3 sentences of our first law. And then the third thing about the SCOTUS, when General Paxton presented that case, it's my understanding that there are 5 types of cases that the Supreme Court must be the first court, the court of first resort. And Paxton's suit satisfied 3 of those. Any one of those 3 should have been taken by the Supreme Court, and none of them were. So that's kind of a long thing, but I'd appreciate a good answer.
Okay, thanks, Bob.
So, I'm afraid I didn't quite catch the first question. Maybe, Pedro, you did. But as far as the question of whether sort of a value system, natural law, those kinds of things should come into play in construing the Constitution, 100% yes. This gets to this idea of a gray area. Most of law is not black and white. I have students come in every semester that want the answer, and I say, listen, if there was an answer, if you could Wikipedia the answer to the question, there would not be a reason to hire a lawyer, because law is vague, law is ambiguous. And Pedro, remind me the third question. I lost it for a second.
You know what? Now that I'm looking at my notes, I think I misplaced it too. But while I'm at it, let me look for it and let me ask you the last question. What particularly are you looking for this week?
I'm looking to hear new information, frankly. I know we've seen videos. I think people have made up their minds, but I would like to hear from people around the president as far as what his point of view was at that, what he was actually getting at. I would like to hear from law enforcement officials as to why there was such a weak presence. I would like to hear from some of the protesters and what they understood was the call in the moment on the Capitol, in particular because some of these people are going to potentially lose their liberty and have severe consequences that aren't going to be the case with Donald Trump, because impeachment cannot take away somebody's freedom in terms of liberty. So I'd like to see that. I think we'll see a compelling kind of, Hollywood type video montage of what happened, and it was horrific. It was disturbing. It was traumatic for a lot of people, and so I think it's important we all take note of that and ask ourselves if that's okay going forward. And I believe actually the last question was about the Supreme Court of the United States. Did you have that, Pedro?
It was Ken Paxton's case, and apparently
yes, thank you.
It satisfied 3 of the requirements or something along that line.
Thank you so much. So yes. There is a provision in the U.S. Constitution for filing lawsuits directly in the Supreme Court, particularly if you have 2 states that are fighting. And so I don't take issue with whether it was okay to file a lawsuit directly in the U.S. Supreme Court, but you need 2 things to file lawsuits. Just because you file a lawsuit doesn't mean you'll get past go, which this one didn't. You need 2 things. You need facts to support a good faith argument that there was fraud here, and as I said, though they had a lot of opportunity to come up with facts, didn't come up with any facts. They just don't exist. They would have been in courts if they existed. The second is you have to have what's called a cause of action. So what I tell my students, there's no cause of action for stink eye on the metro. You might get mad at somebody, but you can't sue them for stink eye. There's no cause of action allowing the state of Texas to cancel millions of votes in 4 other states. No law gives Texas that right to do that. No law, frankly, gives any politician the right to just say, we don't like those votes for whatever reason, we're going to cross them off like they don't exist. Because as the earlier caller said, this is government by we the people. So our votes are precious. And because there was no law that would have given that relief, that's why the court knocked it out, not because it was filed directly in the Supreme Court.
Kim Wehle is our guest, the author of How to Read the Constitution and Why. We thank you for your time as always.
Well, and thank you, and thanks so much to the callers for such thoughtful questions.
Coming up in about a half hour from now,
what about Foster v. Love? And uniform federal election voting requirements.